In the middle of a busy city, where people hurried past without a second thought, she stood out only because she never tried to. Her smile was gentle, soft, and steady, a small light in the noisy, rushing crowd that no one seemed to notice. People brushed by her as if she were part of the air, invisible, but they're all the same. She wore plain clothes, something simple and easy to move in, and her hair was tied back, keeping her face clear but never drawing attention. Her eyes, though, held stories deeper than the city streets beneath her feet. They were calm on the surface, but if someone looked closer, they might see the weight she carried, the kind of weight that no one can tell by looking at someone's face. She hid her pain behind that smile, the smile she wore every day like armor was the shield she chose, the way she faced a world that never asked her questions but pushed her to keep moving forward anyway. No one knew why she smiled, or what memories whispered in the silence when the crowd moved on and she was left alone. The tattoo on her wrist was small, but strange, a symbol, in dark ink that curved like a secret wave, a mark that seemed out of place among the everydayness of her hands. It was faded but still clear enough to catch the eye of one man in the crowd, a man who knew that such marks were never just art or fashion. He was a veteran, someone who had spent years learning to read the hidden language of scars, symbols, and signs. He noticed the tattoo in a quick moment, just a flash as he passed her by, but it stayed with him like a shadow following sunlight. There was something about it that spoke of a story waiting to be told, a past that was locked away but not forgotten. The man's steps slowed, his eyes tracing the lines of the tattoo again, and his mind began to wander back to places he had hoped to leave behind forever, places filled with danger, loss, and silent promises. The veteran was not a man of many words, but his instincts had kept him alive longer than luck ever could. He had seen too much pain in too many faces to ignore what he felt now that this woman's quiet strength was like a beacon in the dark, a reminder that some wounds are hidden but never healed. He thought about approaching her, about breaking the invisible wall she carried around herself, but something held him back, too respect, maybe, or fear of what the truth might be. So he kept walking, watching her from a distance, wondering about the stories she carried under that careful smile. She, meanwhile, moved through the day as she always did, quiet steps, steady breath, eyes scanning the faces that never truly saw her. She was careful not to meet anyone's gaze for too long, but she could feel the weight of those invisible eyes, the ones that looked beyond the surface. Sometimes, it was too much, and her smile would falter just a little, like a flicker in a candle's flame, but no one noticed. She was used to hiding. Pain had become a part of her shadow, following her like a silent companion. It was a pain that no words could explain, and no tears could wash away. At night, when the city lights dimmed and the noise faded to a distant hum, she would look at the tattoo on her wrist. The symbol was a reminder of a life she had tried to forget, a life filled with missions, secrets, and sacrifices no one outside her world could understand. The tattoo was a mark of that past, a key to memories both sharp and bitter, but she kept it hidden from the world because the world was not ready to hear her story. Not yet. Back in the cafe where the veteran sat nursing a coffee, his thoughts kept circling back to the woman with the tattoo. He knew that symbol was rare, connected to a military operation, long erased from public memory, but etched deep in the minds of those who survived it. The veteran felt a pull, a need to reach out, to find out who she was beneath the smile and the silence. He remembered the promises he had made to protect, to watch, and sometimes to fight, not just for his country, but for the people caught in the war's shadows. Maybe, he thought, she was one of those people. The day wore on, but neither of them moved from their invisible dance. The veteran watched her leave the cafe, the light catching her tattoo in the window just before she disappeared down the street. He made a decision, then a quiet promise in his heart, to learn her story, to find the truth behind the smile. Little did they both know, this small moment was the start of something much larger, a story about pain, courage, and secrets that would not stay hidden forever, because sometimes a tattoo is not just a mark on skin, it is a signpost to the past, a call for help, and the key to unlocking a story that could change everything. The veteran was ready to listen. The veteran sat alone in his small apartment, the hum of the city outside barely reaching him. The tattoo he had seen earlier that day was burned into his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just ink on skin. It was a sign, a message, a memory. He pulled out an old worn folder from his desk, the kind he kept hidden away for years, filled with files and papers from missions that had been buried deep in the military archives. Among them was the symbol he had seen, the same wave-like tattoo, small but meaningful, connected to a secret operation no one was supposed to talk about. The operation was called Silent Echo, a covert mission that had taken place years ago in a forgotten war. It involved a small group of soldiers tasked with gathering intelligence and dismantling a dangerous network. Many of them had disappeared afterward, erased from official records. Some were rumored to have survived, living in the shadows, carrying scars that no one else could see. The tattoo was a mark of their loyalty and pain, a symbol they had chosen to remind themselves they were not alone, even when the world forgot them. The veteran's fingers traced the edges of the folder. He remembered some of those soldiers, the faces that haunted his dreams, the names spoken in whispers. He thought of the woman with the tattoo, the way she had smiled, but not really smiled, the kind of smile that held a secret to heavy share. He knew she was one of them, and that meant she was in danger. Determined to find her again, he started digging deeper. He used old contacts, hacked through locked files, and pieced together fragments of the past. Every new detail made the picture clearer, but also darker. The mission had been a disaster in many ways: betrayals, cover-ups, lost lives, and the truth was something powerful people wanted to keep hidden. Meanwhile, the woman went about her days cautiously, unaware of the man who was trying to find her. She had learned long ago not to trust easily, especially with strangers who asked too many questions. Her smile was a shield, but beneath it, her mind was restless. Memories of the operation, of the friends she had lost, of the pain she carried, often flooded her thoughts like an unstoppable tide. The tattoo on her wrist was a constant reminder of what she had survived on, what she still ran from. One evening, while walking through a quiet park, she felt the weight of being watched. Her steps quickened, heart racing. She glanced behind her but saw only shadows. She wasn't wrong. Someone was following her. The veteran kept his distance, careful not to scare her, but close enough to protect if needed. He knew the danger. Was real enemies from the past who wanted her silence, who feared the secrets she carried. Their paths would soon cross again, but neither knew it yet. The veteran's quiet determination and her guarded strength were on a collision course, pulled together by the tattoo's secret and the danger lurking in the shadows. The story behind the ink was waiting to be told, Dan. It would change everything. The night was cold and quiet, but inside the small room where she lived, the memories burned bright. She sat by the window, the faint glow of streetlights casting long shadows on the floor. Her fingers traced the tattoo on her wrist, the same symbol that had caught the veteran's eye. It was more than just ink. It was a link to a past she wished she could forget but couldn't. She remembered the war, the endless battles, the faces of those she had fought beside, the friends who never came home, the mission that had changed everything, the mission that had left scars deeper than any wound on her skin. The veteran, too, sat alone in his own room, staring at the same symbol in his mind. He remembered the sounds of gunfire, the harsh orders, the silence that followed every loss. He knew the pain that hid behind her smile, because he carried it himself. The war had shaped them both, but in different ways. He had learned to live with the shadows, but she was still haunted by them. Their lives were connected by that mission, by the secrets they both carried. The tattoo was a mark of survival, a reminder of the price they paid. But now, the past was catching up to them. Someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The veteran's phone buzzed with a message, a warning, a clue that the danger was closer than they thought. He felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. He needed to find her, to protect her, before it was too late. Meanwhile, she sensed the growing threat. She tightened her coat around her, hiding the tattoo beneath the sleeve. Trust was hard to come by, but maybe, just maybe, this man who noticed her mark could be an ally. Their stories were about to collide, and the shadows of war would no longer stay hidden. The city was alive with noise and movement, but in a quiet corner of a small park, the veteran waited patiently. His eyes scanned every passerby, searching for the woman with the tattoos, the woman whose smile hid more than anyone could guess. He had followed her for days, learning her patterns, respecting her distance. He wanted to approach her carefully, without frightening her or breaking the fragile wall she had built around herself. When she finally appeared, walking alone with her head slightly bowed against the cold wind, his heart tightened. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than the hardened soldier he imagined beneath her calm exterior. The tattoo peeked from under her sleeve for a brief moment as she adjusted her coat. It was the signal he had waited for. Taking a deep breath, the veteran stepped forward slowly. "Excuse me," he said gently, careful not to startle her. "I couldn't help but notice your tattoo. It's familiar." She froze, eyes wide for a moment before regaining composure. "It's nothing," she replied quietly, voice steady but cautious. "Just a mark." He nodded, understanding the weight behind those words. "I know what it means. I was part of the same mission." Silent echo, her breath caught. For the first time, the carefully guarded smile faltered. "How did you find me?" "I've been looking," he said simply. "I think you're in danger." They sat on a nearby bench, the space between them filled with unspoken pain. She told fragments enough to confirm her identity, but not enough to reveal everything. She spoke of loss, of betrayal, of a mission that was never supposed to end this way. The veteran listened, offering a silent promise of protection. They were both haunted by memories, but now, for the first time, they faced those ghosts together. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the edge of the park. They both looked up, alert, knowing the danger was never far behind. Their alliance had just begun, and the fight for survival was only getting harder. The city's lights flickered in the misty evening air, casting long, uneasy shadows across narrow alleys and quiet streets. The veteran and the woman moved carefully through the maze of concrete and steel, their senses alert to every sound and movement. Trust was still fragile between them, a fragile thread woven from shared pain and whispered fears. The tattoo on her wrist, once hidden beneath sleeves and smiles, now seemed like a beacon, both a sign of who she was and a target painted on her back. Their meeting in the park was only the beginning. The veteran, whose name was David, had learned fast that danger did not announce itself with fanfare. It hid in silence, waiting for the right moment to strike. And the woman whose name was Maya knew too well what it meant to be hunted. The secrets behind their shared past had enemies willing to go to any lengths to keep them buried. As they walked side by side, their footsteps echoing softly, David kept glancing over his shoulder. The feeling of being watched was not paranoia, it was real. Footsteps that did not belong, shadows slipping behind corners, whispers that disappeared before they could be caught. The war they thought was behind them had found a way back. Eyes flicked to the tattoo on her wrist, tracing its faded lines as if drawing strength from the symbol. "They never stopped searching for me," she said quietly, voice barely more than a whisper. "Not since the mission ended." David nodded grimly. "I know, and now they're here." The tattoo was more than a symbol, it was a mark of a secret mission called Silent Echo, a mission that had gone wrong in ways no one was allowed to talk about. The people behind it were powerful, with deep connections and resources that stretched far beyond the battlefield. They wanted silence. They wanted to erase every trace of the truth. David and Maya found shelter in an abandoned building, a hollow shell of bricks and broken windows. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories, but it was the safest place they could find for now. As Maya pulled her coat tighter around her, David scanned the street outside, searching for any sign of pursuit. "We need to figure out who's after you," David said, "and why." Maya hesitated, then pulled out a small crumpled envelope from her bag. Inside were photos, blurry but clear enough to show faces she recognized. Former comrades, some presumed dead, now linked to shadowy figures in dangerous deals. "They're hunting us because we know too much," she said. "Because we survived." David studied the photos, feeling the weight of betrayal in every frame. The people they trusted had turned, some to save themselves, others for darker reasons. The mission's failure wasn't just bad luck, it was betrayal from within. Suddenly, a sharp noise outside snapped their attention. Footsteps, closer, faster. David moved to the broken window, peering out just in time to see a figure disappear into the fog. "We're not alone," he said. Maya's eyes flashed with determination. "Then we fight." They prepared themselves, hearts pounding but minds focused. They weren't just running anymore, they were ready to face the threat head-on. The night stretched long and tense. Every shadow held a question, every silence a promise of danger. But together, David and Maya found strength where once there was only fear. The hidden threat was real, and it was closing in fast. But they were no longer alone, and they would not back down. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, its soft glow falling on scattered papers and glowing screens. David and Maya sat across from each other, their faces tired but determined. The abandoned building they had taken refuge in was their temporary fortress, a place where they could think, plan, and piece together the fragments of their shattered past. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the battle unfolding in the shadows. On the table between them lay a series of photographs, maps, and encrypted messages, clues left behind by their enemies and allies alike. David's fingers traced the lines on a map showing hidden locations connected to the Silent Echo mission. Maya studied a torn letter with half of a message missing. The words blurred but the urgency clear. "We're close," David said quietly. "These pieces, they're starting to fit." Maya nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and pain. "It's like a puzzle, but some pieces are missing, and others don't belong." Together, they began to connect dots. The tattoo, once a mystery, was now a key to understanding the secret network that had controlled their lives. It wasn't just a mark of survival, it was a sign of membership in a group that had been betrayed from within. The mission had been compromised, and those responsible had gone to great lengths to hide the truth. As they worked late into the night, Maya opened up more about the past she had tried to bury. She spoke of friends who had vanished, of orders that didn't make sense, of moments when she had felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest. David listened, offering support without judgment. He shared his own memories, the confusion, the loss, the silent vow to protect those who survived. Suddenly, David's phone buzzed. A new message appeared, a cryptic note with coordinates and a single word: trust. Both of them stared at the screen, the word hanging in the air between them. It was a sign that someone was reaching out, someone who wanted to help. But trust was a dangerous thing now. They didn't know who the sender was, or what their true intentions were. "We have to find out who this is," Maya said, her voice steady but cautious. David agreed. They knew that trusting the wrong person could be fatal, but ignoring the message could mean missing their only chance to uncover the truth. With the city asleep around them, they prepared to follow the lead, aware that every step could bring them closer to danger or salvation. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the full picture was still hidden in the shadows, and in the world they lived in, shadows could be deadly. The night air was thick with tension as David and Maya stepped out of the safety of the abandoned building and into the unknown. The message they had received, the one word, trust, had led them here, to a small warehouse on the edge of the city, a place that seemed forgotten by time, but clearly held secrets they needed. Every sound around them felt amplified: the distant hum of traffic, the rustling of leaves, the steady beat of their own hearts. David checked his gear, his eyes scanning the shadows for movement. Maya adjusted the sleeve of her jacket, making sure the tattoo on her wrist stayed hidden. They knew crossing this line into the world of shadows and secrets was dangerous, but there was no turning back now. The truth was waiting, and they were ready to face it as they approached the warehouse. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a figure standing in the dim light inside. The stranger's face was hidden in shadows, but the voice was calm, steady. "You came." David nodded cautiously. "We got your message. We want answers." The stranger stepped forward, revealing a woman with sharp eyes and a nut demeanor. "My name is Elena," she said. "I was part of Silent Echo too, but I left when things went wrong." Maya's heart tightened. Another survivor, another piece of the puzzle. But could they trust her? Elena explained that after the mission, she had uncovered evidence of a deep betrayal plans that endangered their lives and covered up the truth. She had been gathering proof, watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to expose those responsible. "We don't have much time," Elena warned. "They know we're alive, and they're coming for us." David exchanged a glance. With Maya, the hidden threat was no longer just a shadow, it was real, and closing in fast. Elena led them inside, showing them files, encrypted data, and contacts. It was a web of lies and danger far bigger than they had imagined. As they worked together, David felt a flicker of hope, a chance to finally bring the truth to light. But crossing this line meant more than facing enemies. It meant facing the ghosts of their past, the choices they had made, and the people they had lost. It meant risking everything. Outside, the city slept, unaware that in one small warehouse, the battle for justice and survival had truly begun. The early morning mist clung to the streets as David, Maya, and Elena gathered in the cramped back room of the warehouse. The air was heavy with tension and the smell of cold metal and dust. Their eyes were fixed on the glowing screen in front of them, where lines of encrypted data scrolled relentlessly. Each piece of information was another thread in a vast web of secrets, lies, and danger, one that was slowly tightening around them. David rubbed his tired eyes. "We've been at this for hours. What exactly are we looking for?" Elena's fingers danced across the keyboard. "Names, dates, connections, anything that points to who's behind the betrayal and what they're planning next." Maya leaned in, her gaze sharp. "We already know some of them, people we thought we could trust. But this goes deeper than we imagined." They had uncovered evidence of a shadow network, a group that had been manipulating events from behind the scenes. Their reach extended into government agencies, powerful corporations, even law enforcement. The Silent Echo mission was just the beginning, a small battle in a larger war for control and silence. As the morning sun began to rise, casting pale light through cracked windows, a new alert flashed on the screen. Elena's eyes widened. "They're moving faster than we thought." David's heart pounded. Before Elena could answer, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from outside. The warehouse door shook as someone tried to force it open. The trio exchanged quick, tensed glances. "They found us," Maya whispered, pulling a concealed pistol from her coat. David grabbed his own weapon, steadying his breath. "We're not going down without a fight." The door burst open, and a group of masked men stormed in, guns raised. But David, Maya, and Elena were ready. The room erupted into chaos: gunfire, shouted commands, and the sharp scent of gunpowder filled the air. Amid the confusion, Maya's mind raced. The web of lies had tightened around them, but she was determined not to be caught in it. She fought with every ounce of strength, protecting Elena and David, knowing that the truth they sought was worth any risk. The attackers pushed harder, but the trio found cover and fired back. Moments stretched like hours in the fierce battle, each second filled with danger and resolve. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the attack stopped. The masked men retreated into the shadows, leaving behind silence and destruction. David took a deep breath, checking his friends for injuries. "This isn't over. They're watching us." Elena nodded, grim. "Now they know we're closer than ever." Maya looked at the glowing screen, the data still scrolling. The web had tightened around them, but their fight was far from finished. The truth was near, buried beneath layers of lies and danger, and they would uncover it no matter what it cost. The city lay under a thick blanket of fog as David, Maya, and Elena regrouped after the attack. The warehouse, once a place of tentative hope, was now scarred by bullet holes and shattered glass. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke and fear, but also with a renewed determination. They had survived the assault, but the danger had only grown more urgent. Inside a hidden room beneath the building, they gathered around a flickering monitor. The encrypted data still awaited their attention, a complex puzzle that held the key to the truth. Every new line of code, every hidden file, brought them closer to unraveling the conspiracy behind Silent Echo. David's voice was low but firm. "We can't afford mistakes. They're watching every move we make." Maya nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. "We're close to something. I can feel it." Elena tapped a series of commands, unlocking a sealed folder marked with a symbol they recognized from the tattoo. The files inside were heavy with secrets, names, locations, orders, signed by people long thought trustworthy. The evidence painted a picture of betrayal that cut deeper than they had imagined. "This is it," Elena said, scrolling through documents. "The real story behind Silent Echo. What happened after the mission ended." David leaned closer, reading. The chilling accounts of cover-ups, executions, and disappearances. Friends turned enemies, alliances broken in cold blood. The mission had been sabotaged from the start, a trap designed to silence those who knew too much. Maya's hands trembled as she processed the weight of the truth. The tattoo on her wrist was not just a symbol of survival, it was a mark placed on those the conspirators wanted to destroy. Suddenly, an alarm blared, a sharp, piercing sound that shattered the tense silence. Red lights flashed around the room. Someone had triggered a security breach. David sprang to his feet. "They found us again." Without hesitation, they grabbed their gear and prepared to move. Every moment counted. The edges of truth were close, but so were the edges of danger. As they exited the hidden room, the corridors echoed with the sounds of pursuit, footsteps, shouted orders, the metallic clatter of weapons. The enemies were relentless, and the web of betrayal stretched farther than they could have feared. They raced through dark hallways and twisting staircases, using every skill learned in battle to evade capture. The walls seemed to close in around them, the shadows growing deeper and more threatening. A narrow window overlooking the city's river. They paused, catching their breath. Below, the water flowed silently, a stark contrast to the chaos behind them. David looked at Maya and Elena, his eyes filled with resolve. "We're almost there. The truth is just beyond this." Maya clenched her fists, the tattoo burning like a beacon of hope and pain. "No matter what, we finish this together." They crossed the line into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The edge of truth was close, but so was the danger. And in this battle, only one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The cold night air bit at David's face as he and Maya moved silently through the deserted streets. Every step echoed in the emptiness. The only sound in the city's dark heart. The weight of the secrets they carried pressed down heavier than the cold. After the narrow escape from the warehouse attack, the danger was more real than ever. Their enemies were closing in, and the price for failure was too high to imagine. Maya's tattoo burned beneath her sleeve. Not just a mark of survival, but a reminder of the past she could never escape. The mission called Silent Echo was no longer just a memory. It was a living nightmare, pulling them into a fight that felt impossible to win. They paused near a small cafe, its windows dark and empty. David glanced at Maya. "We need a plan. We can't keep running forever." She nodded, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. "We have to find the source, the one who betrayed us. If we can expose them, maybe this ends." But even as they spoke, a shadow moved across the street, a signal that they were being watched, hunted. Trust was fragile, and every face could hide an enemy. Back at their safe house, Elena waited anxiously. The files they had uncovered pointed to someone high up, someone with power to destroy lives with a word. The betrayal wasn't just about the mission. It was about control, about silencing those who threatened to reveal the truth. Hours passed as they pieced together fragments of information, each new clue leading to more questions. The pressure built until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. Then came the breaking point. A message arrived, simple, cold, and deadly clear. "Stop now, or lose everything." David stared at the screen, anger and fear mixing in his eyes. "They want us to back down." Maya's voice was steady. "We can't. Not now, not ever." That night, the city seemed darker, the air heavier. They knew the cost of continuing. The fight, but the cost of silence was greater. As dawn broke, they prepared to face the enemy head-on. The breaking point had come, and with it, the chance to finally uncover the truth or be consumed by the shadows forever. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with clouds that threatened rain, as David, Maya, and Elena prepared themselves for what they all knew was coming, the reckoning. It was the moment when all the secrets, lies, and betrayals would finally come to a head. For months they had been chasing shadows and dodging danger, but now the truth was within reach. Yet, with the truth came a price that none of them could ignore. They gathered in the cramped safe house. Maps and documents spread across a battered table. The walls seemed to close in, filled with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. David's jaw was tight, his eyes sharp as he traced the final path that would lead them to the mastermind behind the betrayal. "This is it," he said quietly. "The last piece of the puzzle." Maya looked up, her face a mask of determination and fear. "We can't afford to fail now." Elena nodded, her fingers trembling slightly as she packed the last of their gear. "They're more dangerous than ever, but we have to stop them." The plan was risky, a direct confrontation with those who had orchestrated the cover-up and silenced so many. It meant stepping into the lion's den, where trust was a weapon, and every move could be their last dot. As they moved through the city, shadows lengthened, and the tension grew thicker. Every step was careful, every glance measured. They were hunted, but now they were hunters. When they reached a target, a heavily guarded compound hidden behind layers of security, they paused. David took a deep breath. "This ends today." Inside, the air was cold and sterile, a sharp contrast to the chaos outside. The trio moved silently, using every skill and piece of knowledge they had to avoid detection. Each corridor brought them closer to the truth, and closer to danger. Suddenly, alarms blared. Their presence had been discovered. Gunfire echoed through the halls. They fought with fierce determination, pushing forward despite the odds. The betrayal was no longer just a story, it was a battle for survival. In a final confrontation, they faced the mastermind, someone they never expected. Someone whose face was as familiar as their own. The truth spilled out in harsh words and painful confessions. The mission had been doomed from the start, manipulated for power and control. The price they paid was measured in lives and broken trust. But even in the face of betrayal, David, Maya, and Alina stood together. They had come too far to turn back. As the rain began to fall outside, washing away the dust and blood, the reckoning reached its end. The truth was out, but the scars remained. And for those who survived, the fight for justice was only just beginning. The first light of dawn spilled over the city, softening the edges of broken buildings and battered streets. It was a new day, one that carried with it hope, uncertainty, and the heavy weight of what had come before. David, Maya, and Alina stood together on the rooftop of their safe house, looking out over the world they had fought so hard to protect. The battles were over, the secrets had been revealed. The shadows that had chased them for so long were finally lifting, if only a little. But the cost had been high, and the road ahead was still unclear. Maya looked down at the tattoo on her wrist, now faded but still a reminder of the journey they had taken. "We survived," she said quietly. "But survival isn't enough anymore." David nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "We owe it to those who didn't make it to make sure this never happens again." Elena's voice was steady, filled with resolve. "The truth is out. Now it's up to us to build something better." The past months had tested them in ways they never imagined. They had faced betrayal, loss, and danger, but they had also found strength in each other. The mission that had once been a silent echo of pain was now a call to action, a reminder that even in darkness, there is light. As the city slowly woke below them, the trio made plans not just for survival, but for change. They would share their story, expose the corruption, and fight for justice. The scars they carried would never fully heal, but they would wear them as badges of honor. David turned to Maya and Alina, a rare smile breaking through the weariness. "This is our new beginning," Maya smiled back, hope shining in her eyes. "A new dawn." Alina looked out at the rising sun, feeling the promise of what was to come. Together, they stepped forward into a future they would shape with courage, truth, and unbreakable bonds. The road would be long and difficult, but they were ready, because some stories don't end with silence, they begin with a new voice, and theirs was just getting louder. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with clouds that threatened rain, as David, Maya, and Alina prepared themselves for what they all knew was coming, the reckoning. It was the moment when all the secrets, lies, and betrayals would finally come to a head. For months they had been chasing shadows and dodging danger, but now the truth was within reach. Yet with the truth came a price that none of them could ignore. They gathered in the cramped safe house. Maps and documents spread across a battered table. The walls seemed to close in, filled with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. David's jaw was tight, his eyes sharp as he traced the final path that would lead them to the mastermind behind the betrayal. "This is it," he said quietly. "The last piece of the puzzle." Maya looked up, her face a mask of determination and fear. "We can't afford to fail now." Alina nodded, her fingers trembling slightly as she packed the last of their gear. "They're more dangerous than ever, but we have to stop them." The plan was risky, a direct confrontation with those who had orchestrated the cover-up and silenced so many. It meant stepping into the lion's den, where trust was a weapon, and every move could be their last. As they moved through the city, shadows lengthened, and the tension grew thicker. Every step was careful, every glance measured. They were hunted, but now they were hunters. When they reached a target, a heavily guarded compound hidden behind layers of security, they paused. David took a deep breath. "This ends today." Inside, the air was cold and sterile, a sharp contrast to the chaos outside. The trio moved silently, using every skill and piece of knowledge they had to avoid detection. Each corridor brought them closer to the truth, and closer to danger. Suddenly, alarms blared. Their presence had been discovered. Gunfire echoed through the halls. They fought with fierce determination, pushing forward despite the odds. The betrayal was no longer just a story, it was a battle for survival. In a final confrontation, they faced the mastermind, someone they never expected. Someone whose face was as familiar as their own. The truth spilled out in harsh words and painful confessions. The mission had been doomed from the start, manipulated for power and control. The price they paid was measured in lives and broken trust. But even in the face of betrayal, David, Maya, and Alina stood together. They had come too far to turn back. As the rain began to fall outside, washing away the dust and blood, the reckoning reached its end. The truth was out, but the scars remained. And for those who survived, the fight for justice was only just beginning. The first light of dawn spilled over the city, softening the edges of broken buildings and battered streets. It was a new day, one that carried with it hope, uncertainty, and the heavy weight of what had come before. David, Maya, and Alina stood together on the rooftop of their safe house, looking out over the world they had fought so hard to protect. The battles were over, the secrets had been revealed, the shadows that had chased them for so long were finally lifting, if only a little, but the cost had been high, and the road ahead was still unclear. Maya looked down at the tattoo on her wrist, now faded but still a reminder of the journey they had taken. "We survived," she said quietly. "But survival isn't enough anymore." David nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "We owe it to those who didn't make it to make sure this never happens again." Elena's voice was steady, filled with resolve. "The truth is out. Now it's up to us to build something better." The past months had tested them in ways they never imagined. They had faced betrayal, loss, and danger, but they had also found strength in each other. The mission that had once been a silent echo of pain was now a call to action, a reminder that even in darkness, there is light. As the city slowly woke below them, the trio made plans not just for survival, but for change. They would share their story, expose the corruption, and fight for justice. The scars they carried would never fully heal, but they would wear them as badges of honor. David turned to Maya and Alina, a rare smile breaking through the weariness. "This is our new beginning," Maya smiled back, hope shining in her eyes. "A new dawn." Alina looked out at the rising sun, feeling the promise of what was to come. Together, they stepped forward into a future they would shape with courage, truth, and unbreakable bonds. The road would be long and difficult, but they were ready, because some stories don't end with silence, they begin with a new voice, and theirs was just getting louder.